going to record now. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, because I've never watched you on TV.
No, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm somewhat of a big fan of yours. And I'm someone who's on an intellectual journey, I think.
Okay.
And someone who wants to experience the world and the love of God, in a sense. And so ever since I was a kid, I've tried to grasp what reality is and who I am and what my relationship with God is. And it's been a twist and turn, and trying to understand myself and what God wants of me, and of the world, and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a journey, and I'm still on this journey. And kudos to you to helping me on this journey. I really appreciate some of the things that you've discussed, and the items of that tickle my intellect and my heart, and stuff like that. Right now, I live in a city called Sudbury, in the province of Ontario in Canada.
Okay.
So Sudbury is essentially the old Northern Ontario. So those of you who are watching maybe in Thunder Bay, they're so south. They're only 4 hours north of Toronto, so to speak. But Sudbury was the original Northern Ontario. Okay. And it was settled by French settlers. And so originally a logging town or whatever, but mining is the real heart of the matter here in Sudbury.
Okay.
So
how do you spell it?
I am an electrical engineer, a professional electrical engineer, and I work in the mining industry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the reason why I speak of Thunder Bay is because I grew up in Thunder Bay.
Oh.
And I'm not sure I don't know if you know the geography of Ontario, but that's really close. Well, not really close. It's 6 hours from the Manitoba border, but in Northern Ontario terms, that's close.
Wow.
Yeah. So I grew up in a northern town, and this is where the Peterson thing comes. He grew up in a small town, Alberta. And so I've lived most of my life in Northern Ontario. And Northern Ontario is somewhat similar but different from where Jordan Peterson grew up. So we're far away from the centers of the cosmopolitan thing, but yet I grew up in a city, which is Thunder Bay. So I went to college there, and I got my university degree there as well. And then I got a job, and I moved to northeastern Ontario, which is a separate culture. So it's a very French, very bilingual. So Northern Ontario is kind of divided into northwest, which is Thunder Bay is the center, so to speak, of the large metropolitan. And then there's the northeast, which has Timmins, which is way north, and then Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury. And Sudbury is the largest center of Northern Ontario. So there's 4 large compared to the United States and California. Yeah, large. But from my perspective, yeah, that's the geography of Northern Ontario. And so, it's always like, oh, Toronto, so to speak. Yeah. So anyways, I eventually, through work, was able to move with my wife to Sudbury, and we're raising 2 children here, and we were able to find a church community, United Church of Canada community, that's a block away from our house.
Wonderful.
So it's really it's St. Stephen's on the Hill. Give a shout out.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've been going there for since 2006, 2005, And you know, the people there have seen our children born and grown up, and both, well, not both, but my wife and my two children have been baptized in that church. So it's kind of it's a place of community. And yeah, there's all the stuff that you talk about and the heretics.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes on in our place of worship as well. I've it's allowed me to participate and allow myself to bring glory to God, in the sense of we started an evening Bible study, and so I partake in that. You know, being type of guy. You know, okay, let's get into this. Let's get into the details. You know, being an engineer, an electrical engineer, by the way. You know, I want to get into the details of what's going on, and then later, things happening at our church, I end up leading the Bible study. So tomorrow we're going to have Bible study, and I'm going to be leading the Bible study. So I take some of your work and some of the ideas, some of the ideas that you bring, and I share that. And what we do is we read the text. I'll bring maybe some exegesis that have gathered from the internet, and then we talk about our experience and how we personally relate. And so then we're going to talk about the political ramifications, maybe, or how it affects us in our personal life. You know, the particular verses that we're looking at. And I never thought of that. And or, gee, what does this mean? You know, and so we take in these things that you can't do by yourself. Like, I mean, you can watch you know, people like yourself and others for some explanation, but when you're talking with a small group of people about how the verses affect you, or how you relate that to your own personal lives and your own behavior, it's moving, it's empowering, it's all these wonderful things that are going on all at the same time. Like it's multi, and the layers that are happening, it's just it's phenomenal. And I'm rambling, and it's crazy.
It's wonderful. I love it. I love the church. I love Bible studies, and what you're talking about is exactly right, and it's terrific. And that's the Bible in action.
It feels, I recommend it. I so recommend it to those. Well, I don't know enough about the Bible, and that's free. Bible studies for you then. Like, that's what you, because you know, if you're in the right group, you can really open up an understanding. And you know, sometimes I'll have certain ideas about what the message is from the scripture, and then there's another idea that adds another layer upon that layer, and it's just it's joyful. I go, you know, I work long hours, and you know, I get up early in the morning, and I go to the mine site, and then, you know, I'm working, and I'm, you know, using a lot of F sharps. My Bible study group day is like, you swear? Yeah. I'm probably the worst of them all. But, you know, but I go and I share my love of God and trying to understand His Word, and it's just, it's phenomenal. It's joyful. And then we leave. We do it for an hour, and then it's, yeah, let's go out in the world and bring our understanding to the world in our lives, out to the rest of the world. And so, and that's how our worship service is, particularly at St. Stephen's on the Hill. And it's a beautiful thing. One other thing is, I'm not a good public speaker. The anxiety is just.
You're doing fine here.
Oh yeah, well, I'm talking to Paul Vanderlei, I don't know if you recall, but my wife is of Dutch heritage, and so like even my kids, they know you, and they say, "Oh, you're gonna talk to Paul," and so I asked them, "What should I talk about?" Talk about with Paul, and it's talk about the Bible, and talk about your love of God, and and these kids are very that's what people see is the joyful at church and stuff. And because we don't have the grandparents aren't in our city, and they're hours and hours and hours away, but our church family, I mean, they love our kids. And unfortunately, the way the world is in mainline, people don't see the value of taking the Sunday or taking that hour and a half or 2 hours. You gotta get ready, and you gotta get. It's an hour there. Why? What's the point? Well, I've experienced it, and it's a commitment, and I'm a sinner, and there's lots of times where I've had a hard week, and the health is terrible, and I don't go, and it's that thing. Even with the Bible study, it's almost like an energy, but and when you miss that, it's a little bit of a. So you talk about the you got to connect with that community, right? And right. And so you take on that responsibility, but you need that community, and that's the Holy Spirit in the community. So that's a little bit about me, without going into any intricate details and stuff. I'm a bit of a strange bird. So
well, I'm so glad that you shared this, though, because so often, and rightfully so, people so often tell the sad stories and the difficult stories. Well, I went to this church and this happened, and that's all true, and people need to tell those stories. But your story is not uncommon. That's why churches still go. And even if a church is having troubles in terms of conflicts over differences and policies and pastors who think this and write this and say this, the local church of coming together, of being together, of loving, of belonging to each other, of loving your children, of, and just doing Bible study. And you sit down and you open the Bible and you read it. And what do you think about this? I mean, you almost can't go wrong. Well, sometimes people end up finding a way, but most of the time, it's good. It's good.
It's phenomenal.
So I'm so glad that you took the time to tell that story, because so many people, there are many, many people who, in Canada especially, the percentage of people that actually attend church is very small. And so they'll see the building and what goes on there, and you might come once, and sometimes people say to me, well, how can you, I came to church like once or twice and I felt, so I said, you want to be a part of a church? Come every week for 2 months.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter. Well, I don't believe in God. Well, it's probably not going to matter, because as long as you get along with people and hang out with them, they'll take you in. They don't care what you believe, really. They'll be your friend, and they'll care about your life. And
especially United Church of Canada.
That's right. So, even if you like Jordan Peterson, you might want, might want to keep that under your, but
oh, well,
it's okay.
I've shared in our Bible study a lot of the insights, so the psychological insights that he brings. Are vital in that one of the layers to understand things. So, from my intellectual journey, being an engineer, I'm math,
Yep.
especially electrical.
Yep.
So I'm math, and it's this and not that, and all that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
then in university, we had to take a course, and so I took sociology, and I started to explore a lot of things like, what? And when I had to do my thesis for the particular course, I was trying to understand and compare Nazism to how the digital discourse
Oh.
is. So I picked, and I can't remember all five, but there was five aspects that were the same. So you get the youth involved, and you indoctrinate them.
Yeah.
Then you create a hierarchy of elites. Well, that's the engineers and the technologists and the SS. What? So I read like 5 books, and I was in the textbooks and all this kind of stuff, and it just, wow, there's more to just like 1-0-1-0-1-0-1-0. Wow. And so that started me on my intellectual journey. Now, in Canada, on CBC Radio is a program called Ideas. And on Ideas, there's this, he's retired now, David Cayley. And so he has done a lot of series of people, intellectuals, and exploring their ideas. So he did a classic in the early 80s of Northrop Frye. So that's for Node in the Network.
Yeah.
3-part series on that. And so, and again, we're so simpatico here because, like, listening, I don't read a lot of books, but I can listen, and I absorb a lot of things. So anyways, in the early 2000s, he did Rene Girard.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the individual that, if we have time, I'd like to talk a little bit about Rene Girard and his concepts. So the other thing that I learned as in my intellectual journey was, there are concepts that you can use as tools. And yeah, sometimes a hammer isn't good for loosening nuts, right? You don't use that, but it's great for hitting nails.
Yeah.
And so a lot, the way I see a lot of these intellectual concepts and things are tools, and the way to kind of, let's look at in this perspective and understand it. And so I've done the personality thing, and it turns out I'm weird because I'm both very open, but I'm very conscientious as well. I'm high, and even in the breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
So in intellect and openness to experience, I'm very high, but I'm also very high in orderliness. So that's
an unusual combination.
Yes, and industriousness. Well, you almost have to be that to be an engineer. You gotta. Yep. I gotta do work till you're burnt.
What's unusual with engineers, and I've had a number of engineers in my church over the years, the high in openness is unusual in engineers. Many engineers, they're high in orderly, they're high conscientious, but kind of low in openness. And so they like that. That often makes them quite conservative because order.
Yes, and most, I would say the majority of engineers are conservative because there are certain things you have to do things to a particular standard, and you have to maintain these standards.
Yep.
So that's part of the way that you go about your work. And being in Canada, in the province of Ontario, because I'm a professional engineer, I take responsibility So whatever's on that drawing,
Yep.
and the contractor is doing that work,
Yep.
it's me.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
me who's taking, yes, this is all good. Everything, every word, every phrase on there or line that you see, I'm taking responsibility.
Yep.
Well, and so the Jordan Peterson thing, take responsibility. Well, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
Been
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the, so, it gravitates toward that. So getting back to the journey thing with the ideas thing. So I listened to this David Cayley thing presentation of Rene Girard's thought. It's simple, but it makes sense, and so I've used this for the rest of my life. I've worked with these concepts and these ideas to understand how I'm behaving and how other people are behaving. And you can kind of see at another level of what's going on. Then life goes on or whatever, and then we moved to Sudbury, and then on TVO. This is where Jordan Peterson originally was a mini famous.
Mm-hmm.
He did the Necessity of Virtue lecture, and I remember seeing that. This guy is awesome, because a lot of times in what I found since the 90s is, God is stupid, religion is stupid, people who follow that are stupid, everyone's stupid because cynicism.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, some of it's not right, but is that really right? And it didn't sit well with me, and there wasn't enough articulation to say no. And I wasn't familiar with C.S. Lewis, like you've introduced. Thank you for your C.S. Lewis stuff,
good.
and all the thinkers. What is it, Dallas Willard?
Yeah, Dallas Willard. Yeah.
So, anyways, loved it. That Jordan Peterson on TVO, and that was like 2009 or whatever. Then a few years later, and this is a strange one. I watched this documentary and I thought, Pervert's Guide to Ideology. Well, I'm a sinner. I'm gonna. What is this? Well, it's Slavoj Žižek.
Oh.
And it's a presentation of his philosophy. But what's weird, the beautiful thing about it is they take classic movie scenes and they put him in those scenes, and then he, he's got this tick, and he moves his shirt and he does this to his nose and stuff like that. But he's espousing his philosophical points using movies, the scenes of the movies and stuff. That's like, that's interesting.
Huh.
So he takes one of the big takeaways that I got from it was the concept of tool to understand things is the big other. So when you defer to the big other, the responsibility, the decision making, big other deciding for you. So you're just doing what the big other is, and the big other could be the people, the party,
yep,
whatever. And so he takes lots of shots at Stalin and all this kind of stuff. Like, wow, that's really. So I had to understand. I wanted to understand more. Well, what's this guy talking about? So then look at YouTube and see all his. And I got to understand this guy. So I started watching his lectures, and he's, of course, with his he says lots of like profane jokes and stuff like that. But in his mind, it's an important thing to break the ice, so to speak. So he says, anyways, Jordan might be having a dialogue with him, Zizek. Anyways. So then he's talking about this guy Hegel. And thank you for your little thing on Hegel. So I start, who's this Hegel guy? I got to. So then I come across a podcast. It's called Partially Examined Life, and now it's four guys. Originally it was 3, but these guys were going for their doctorate in philosophy, but then thought better of it. So it's just these old college guys, college friends or acquaintances or whatever, and what they do is they take a text, they read it, and then they discuss it for an hour and a half, 2.5 hours. Wow.
Huh.
They have almost 200 episodes now. So I'm listening to these guys, and wow, now I understand a little bit. Descartes and Hegel. So they've done many episodes of Hegel and many other philosophers within the Western canon. Aristotle and Socrates. Oh, wow. So I'm and at the time I could listen to it at work, so I could absorb all these things. I'm getting, this is amazing. I'm getting like a liberal arts education from these guys, and they're, and I'll tell you their name. Like the one guy,
I just subscribed.
Did you?
Oh yeah, I just did. I mean, you're blowing up my list, baby.
I'm sorry. I know you got so many.
I got books, I got podcasts, I got videos. Now you're the 3rd person that's mentioned Zizek to me in 2 days. It's like, I gotta go check this guy out. And I gotta talk about him and Peterson, and it's like,
Yeah. No, and he's a different animal. He's kind of like, he used to be a darling in the intellectual, let's watch stuff, but nowhere near the Peterson phenomena. But lots of people would go and see him, and he was called the Elvis of philosophy and stuff like that. But he's of the school of Lacan, and man, word salad and but he does have some, like, I want to look at people and see, is there anything that I can grab on and use as a tool to understand? And if there isn't, like, I'll be honest, I'm not interested in like a Sam Harris or the career atheist guys. You almost know what they're going to say, and it's not interesting. And I appreciate all your analysis of the discussions with Peterson, but I'm of the ilk that, it wasn't a very good discussion partner, and it's unfortunate that they spent that amount of time, but it also exposed Jordan to maybe a larger audience that wouldn't have even looked at him.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to me why Peterson wanted to talk to him that much too. And Peugeot talked about that a little bit, and so maybe Peterson thought that Sam was more open. And I just finished talking to someone who said, Dillahunty was worse, and he was.
Well, the career atheist, and like, I listened to a part of it, and I can't. It's not interesting. There's, again, I don't have to agree wholesale. Oh wow, they're the greatest thing, because Jordan Peterson doesn't know Tolkien very well. He keeps calling the Rangers of the Dunedain Striders. No, that's an individual character. What's wrong with you? And then, is it Bilbo or is it Frodo.
We're gonna take away his Tolkien card. Oh.
They're the inheritors of the Numenor kingdom. Come on, you gotta know some of that stuff. But anyway,
be a real nerd. Be a real Tolkien nerd.
Oh yeah.
Get your nomenclature right.
It's like the Office episode. What's up, nerds? I don't know if you remember that. So there's things within. Yeah, we're going all over the place, but there's things in pop culture that my wife and I, there's some meaning to it, and they gravitate. And again, the simpatico that you talk about The Office. That's our favorite show, and I can't watch that show without crying. There's something
really
inherently deep with the interrelationships with the characters, and the stupid follies and all that kind of stuff. But there's the deeper level of true meaning and a little bit of revelation on who, and it's subtle. That's the beauty. The revelation of who people are. It's an artistic reveal, right? It's a look. It's a Jim, look at or these. And if you're not paying attention, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You have to, but it invites the multiple. Like, we've watched the whole series 3 or 4 times all the way through, and our kids love it as well. They don't, lots goes over their head, but they, the whimsical and the farcical. But I even have, my wife does some Photoshop and stuff like that. So I have, what exactly does it say? Whenever I'm about to do anything, I ask myself, would an idiot do that? And if the answer is yes, I do not do that thing. So I have that posted in my cubicle.
That's good.
So a lot of times at work, the F sharps and, I've got the stern look and stuff, but I also have that aspect of, that's what I'm about. And I don't know if you can see in the back there.
I see 12 rules for life.
Yeah. I had to spend all day rearranging the office here.
Can't show up with a messy room.
Oh, exactly. At least clean my room. So again, this thing here,
I see a bookshelf. Oh, that is creepy.
But it's subtle, right? Well, it's not subtle, but it's in your face, but it isn't. Like, what you have to read into it, right? And so that's a little bit of who I am. So when I allow people to see who I am and the intricacies of stuff, I love. This is what I love: is earnestness and whimsy.
Mm-hmm.
So when things become cynical, I can't watch. I'll watch Rogan and his podcast and stuff. I'm not interested in his humor. In his stand-up, I don't find it funny. Louis C.K. and all the rest. It's not funny because it doesn't come from an earnest viewpoint, and that's what really moves me and makes me laugh. And then the silliness out of that earnestness is what really makes me feel something and will make me laugh. But the hey, I said this, and I was doing this sexual thing. All right. Boring. Because everyone's doing it, and it's not interesting in that respect.
There was a I have to find it. I have to find it now because of just what you just said. Where is it? He's a really good YouTuber. Compared The Office, I think it was Seinfeld and The Office.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it was Will Schroeder.
Will Schroeder?
Yeah, hang on. I'm just gonna share the screen.
Okay.
That way we can see it. Here it is. The share button. Okay. So this David Foster Wallace, The Problem with Irony.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever seen this one?
Yeah, and it's excellent.
It's good, and it goes into The Office, I think, and Parks and Rec too.
But then, and unfortunately, the inheritors of what is Jon Stewart's show?
The Daily Show.
The Daily Show. It's disappointing.
Yeah.
And his last 3 years, I lost interest.
Yeah.
Like I thought, he's really nailing them, and yeah. And being from Canada, I guess we're naturally about we're a little bit more liberal in the sense. Well, come on, because there's not a lot of us, right?
Yeah. Fewer people in Canada than in California.
Yeah.
With a whole lot more land.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And so that's the thing where we're a little bit more inviting, and we want to want to be inclusive because there isn't a lot of us.
Yeah.
But it's gone too far in the sense that, the victim Olympics and some of the things that have been identified by Jordan, it's like, but people our media in Canada ignores all that and doesn't. So unless you're someone who kind of goes into the dark recesses of YouTube and seeing things, but the problem is most of it is, can you believe how terrible things are because they're ruining all the world? There's that kind of conservative rebel media thing, and you're still doing what the mainstream media is doing. Is like get mad at this, or it's not informative and it's not interesting.
Yeah.
And I thank God that I was able to find someone like yourself on YouTube, because I was like saying the same thing. I watched all the videos. And I watched them before 2006. So 2014, I was like, oh, this is Jordan Peterson. I remember him from 2009. And so I watched this course, and it's like watching a whole university course. Yay, I'm so smart, but not really. But I took a lot. So, and that's the thing. I would take some of these ideas and concepts and see if they could fit or apply into the Bible study when I'm leading it. And a lot of the Zizek has kind of fallen by the wayside, but there's still some of the Peterson thing that is applicable and stuff like that. So in 2017, throughout that year, we really delved deep into Rene Girard. And I don't know if you've been able to explore. I know you replied to my email and said, people have been mentioning him, and that's the other thing that kind of irked me of Peterson is he's been asked several times about Rene Girard, Like, yeah, I'm familiar. Well, no, yeah, you're not. Because he made a statement that, well, we need to choose scapegoats. He made some statement, I think, at Western. You don't choose a scapegoat.
Right.
It's a random, no, it's an unconscious
That's right.
thing
That's right.
that happens.
That's right.
And that's the whole thing. It's unconscious.
That's right. That's right.
So an important aspect of the whole mimetic theory. So mimetic theory has to do with what motivates you to do things, and that is desire.
Mm-hmm.
Where does your desire come from?
Mm-hmm.
So the mimetic theory tells you that it comes from an other.
Mm-hmm.
You imitate the desire.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like a triangle. So there's you, the subject, and the object, and then the perceived object. So the subject sees the object, desire for the object, and you say, oh, well, that seems desirable, so I want that. And that's fine and good for most of human interaction, because that's how we learn. That's how we learn language. That's how we can better ourselves, etc. But it's double-edged. The thing of object, if there is what Rene Girard terms scandalon. So he uses the old Greek,
Mm-hmm.
the scandalon, the stumbling block.
Mm-hmm.
So when the subject and the other perceive each other's desire, they wish to prevent the other from getting the object, and then eventually the object doesn't even matter.
Right. Right.
And then there's the bind.
Right.
The bind between the two, and that is the mimetic rivalry that happens. And and it's all unconscious. You're not aware consciously of this happening. And there's also the aspect of internal mediation and external mediation. So when your brother and sister, or brother and brother, or a close friend, and you're not conscious of this relationship, that's where the horrible conflict happens, the horrible rivalry.
Cain and Abel.
However, when the mediation to the object of desire, and it could be prestige or virtue or whatever, when it's external, it is acknowledged. So the subject acknowledges the other is the model. And when that happens, there is no conflict. So Rene Girard points out that Don Quixote and Sancho, his buddy Sancho, Sancho acknowledges that his model is Don Quixote.
Mm-hmm.
And so there cannot be a rivalry between them, because it's acknowledged. And so moving forward into the Christian interpretation of this is Christ acknowledges who his model is, the Father.
The Father.
And then Paul acknowledging who his model is, Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so by modeling our desires from Christ, there is no rivalry to that. And that is the beautiful nature of the, of course we could go on for 14 hours about some of the aspects, but that was something that I had to get across.
It's really good. That's really good. And I've been introduced to this a number of times, and every time I see a presentation of it, I think, that's right. But it hasn't grabbed my interest in a way that has brought me to dig into it. Now that might happen at some point. See, this whole question of motivation and interest, maybe not enough people want to talk about Rene Girard. Maybe if everybody says it, then we're like, oh, I've got to talk about Rene Girard. It'll be my motivation. But
but here's the interesting and wonderful thing is, just like Peterson, Rene Girard was across disciplines, and he got a lot of flack because he is trained as in literature.
Okay.
And so he's delving into anthropology and psychology and history and speculation on stuff like that. Well, you can't come into my backyard and tell me how things are. And
Yeah.
that's sort of what Peterson does with his philosophical standpoint. And no, you don't know anything about postmodernism, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
and so it's a pan discipline kind of thing.
Yep.
And it kind of it makes the people who want to be in their ivory towers and their silos say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But here, with the Peterson thing, well, he is a scientist and he's more published than people like Sam Harris. He's written papers that have been peer reviewed like 100 times more than him. So he's got the science cred, and he may not be a great Tolkien scholar.
We'll forgive him.
We'll forgive him for that, for sure. But and that's a major aspect. And one of the things with the Girardian theory is we in our society we're still hanging on to the romantic idea that my desires come from me. That the Nietzsche thing, that I'll make my own morals. I'm beyond good and evil. Really you are? Interesting. But that's not true. You get your desires from the other. And
we think we would have learned that in grade school, when all the kids want the same thing. They all want to wear the same clothes.
Exactly.
I'm original. I'm unique. But I want what they want. Yeah, right. You're real.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so that's the real thing that Rene Girard points out, and so starkly. And I think if more people kind of engage, and maybe there's things that this is wrong, but there's some neat and interesting tools that I see, and every day when I go to work, I understand some of the motivations of people. Just you want to be a stumbling block, and that's a major thing. You want to cause the other one from getting what they want. Well, that's being the stumbling block. Recall what Christ said to Peter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, Lord, you can't go to Jerusalem. You can't. No, I won't allow it.
Yeah.
Get behind me, stumbling block.
Yeah.
Satan, because that's what the satanic, and we weren't able to get into it, but the whole scapegoat mechanism, because it builds upon this mimetic desire aspect. So this mimetic rivalry that happens, and then it conflates and snowballs, and it becomes like a contagion, a virus, till eventually you get to boiling point, and you need, well, why are there people? Why haven't they killed how come everyone hasn't killed everyone? Well, all of a sudden, spontaneously, a single victim arises, and you do away, whether you kill them, send them away, ostracize them, whatever. All that tension is relieved. So it's a paradox. The bad person is gone, but the bad person brought this relief, and that's the paradox that Girard talks about.
Mm-hmm.
So in myth, it talks about the this process, but it covers up that single victim wasn't really guilty and wasn't really the source of the problem or the resolution. And what Girard says is, in the Hebrew scriptures, it reveals this fact with the story of Joseph, that no, Joseph was not guilty, but he's still the scapegoat, right? He's thrown into a hole, sent away, sold off into slavery, all that kind of stuff. And then same motif is played when he has power, and he tricks them into having that cup.
Yep.
And is but even in the Hebrew scriptures, it's has a solution. Someone takes responsibility.
Yep. Yep. Judah
Reuben,
steps up.
right? Reuben says, "Take me, Lord. Take me."
No, Judah.
Don't take.
It's Judah.
Pardon? Oh, sorry, Judah.
Because that whole cycle is the renovation
right.
of Judah. Because it was Judah that said, "There's no money in killing them. Let's sell them to the cousins." So
right.
that whole story is the renovation of Judah.
Right. But then what Girard would say is just, and it happens to be Judah taking responsibility and saying, "Take me," even though he didn't take the cup.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And then later on, the absolute profundity of Christ.
Yep.
And there's so many facets to discuss and stuff. And essentially, Christ uses Satan's mechanism to reveal the truth of it, that the scapegoat is not guilty.
Yes.
And
that's good.
That's why we use that term, scapegoating. What does that mean? Someone is wrongly accused of something and is ostracized or punished because they're wrongly accused. We know this in our culture because of the story of Christ. It reveals the truth of the innocence of the scapegoat.
And the guilt of the group.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've now...
That's right.
They've now
let the
pinned
blood
it
be
on
on
an
us.
innocent person.
Right?
That's right.
Let the blood be on us. When in was it John's gospel? It said, yeah. But exactly, yes, the blood is on us if we are blind to the truth of the scapegoat.
Yeah.
And so there's so many revelatory things that are right there in the stories that we know, and just taking a little different understanding and using the Girardian tool, kind of with the mimetic desires. Wow, it opens up another another level of understanding. And so, that's why, this going to Bible study and sharing this and talking about exploring it, and I don't really, and having people push back and say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, let me think about it. Oh, well, and we come together to some resolution, to a better understanding of the scripture. And it's like, it's 8:00 and I gotta go home and go to bed because I gotta get up.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. This was a delight. And I sure appreciate you taking the time and sharing yourself with me. And I will send this video back to you. And
no need. If you want to send it, if you want to put it up.
Okay, good. No, I'd like to post it.
That's why I got the title. Gotta look sharp for Cousin Paul.
Well, I'm sure your kids will enjoy watching us talk.
I hope so. Steve, are you as smart as Paul Vanderklay? No.
That's the reason I don't like the whole IQ conversation, because it's not that I'm skeptical about it. It's just that intelligence is so complicated. I know people who are really have low IQs but are wise and good, and in many ways way smarter than a lot of people I know with really high IQs.
Absolutely. So. And but you have that, and I can see the glory out of your eyes, and it's beautiful. And I thank you for all that you're doing, Paul. I appreciate it, and I hope some people get something out of it too. But I see the love of God in you, through you, and that's all we can aspire to be, is to glorify God through what we say and the truth. And the truth.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for this hour. This was great.
Thank you, Paul.
And
Much love.
I hope you, are you in your office? Or do you have to drive home yet?
No, office in my house.
Oh, office in your house. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, have a safe walk back to the rest of the family.
Thank you very much, Paul.
All right, Steve. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye-bye.
God bless.
God bless you.